It's a real pleasure for me to be able to join you this morning. I am on a 7-stop whistle tour across southern Michigan here to do county membership kickoffs. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate the opportunity to do that. Believe me, when you're inside Washington, D.C., any opportunity to get out in the world where there's some common sense and good people is a good thing. And so it's a real pleasure for me to be able to do this. I'm going to talk just a little bit about membership. I'm going to talk a little bit about issues, and then I want to throw the floor open for some questions and hear what you have to say or maybe what you want to hear more about, either way. So this isn't going to turn into a long policy wonk speech like sometimes you hear from somebody that comes out of Washington, D.C. Really, I live in Texas, so I don't live in Washington, D.C. I want to make that clear. First off, membership. Farm Bureau is a membership organization. Any membership organization either grows or it dies. And that pretty much tells you why we need to have members and membership and continue to increase those numbers. Two key reasons. One is the resources. The resources it takes to accomplish what we want to do as an organization, and that's true at the national level, state level, at your county level. You need to have the dollar resources coming in, so those membership dues are important. Second reason we need growing membership is implementing our policies, having the political strength that's necessary to convince legislators that they need to vote the way we ask them to vote. You hear a lot about money being the currency of politics. That's not really true. The currency of politics is votes. It's the people who are willing to get out and vote. And if you're an individual who has a relationship with your elected member of Congress or in your state legislature, or have a relationship with those who may be seeking to replace some of those individuals, that's very important, because they're going to know that back in the county, when it comes time to vote, that if you have that relationship and it's a good relationship, that you're going to be supporting them. And that's where the numbers really count. And that's what's given us our strength as an organization. We have the respect as an organization in Washington, D.C., where I can get an appointment probably with just about anybody in Washington, D.C. There's a few notable exceptions to that, but for the most part, just about any office. And they'll listen to me respectfully as I talk about what our organization wants. But who they really want to hear from, whether it's back in the district or in Washington, D.C., through other communication, is you as the voter that elects them to office. And never forget that important fact. We have about 2 million farmers and ranchers in this country. We have political clout far in excess of what that 2 million is as a percentage of the 300+ million people that live in this country, and it's because we tend to be more active. And so membership for an organization is key to us having the numbers, and your involvement in terms of activity is key to us having influence, and it's as simple as that. So I hope some of the things I'm going to talk about in terms of issues gives you a little bit of ammunition, if you will, as you go out and try to seek some individuals to become new members. And if they're involved in agriculture and they understand what we do, I don't see how someone could turn down the opportunity to be a member of Farm Bureau. Let me talk about a couple of issues. Actually, probably more than a couple, but it's going to be quick here. We've just finished our annual meeting in Seattle. It's a good annual meeting, and we had that policy discussion that gives us our policy positions for the coming year. That's a real pleasure for me to chair that and listen to that discussion every year, because it gives me a real sense of where our members want us to go. The board establishes priority issues based on all of the policies, and if you've read our policy book, it's about that thick, and it's got policies on just about everything, but the board has to focus us on priorities, and so they made those decisions. We're doing something a little different this year. We have 2 issues that have risen to the level of what we call campaign issues. We're having a national campaign, Farm Bureau campaign, to try to see that the correct policies are put in place. One is on mandatory cap and trade legislation, climate change legislation. You know, the short version of this is it's bad for U.S. agriculture, because the version that's passed the House would cause us to plant 60-something million acres of land that traditionally had been used to grow food into trees. It would also up our input costs as farmers and ranchers. We can't pass on those costs very easily to consumers. We all know that. And it would put about a $200 billion a year equivalent indirect tax on American consumers because of those higher energy costs. And at the end of the day, even if you think the science on climate change is correct, it wouldn't do anything to affect the climate, because China and India and other developing countries are saying they're not going to put a stranglehold on their economy to have their carbon emissions capped, to cap their energy use, they're going to go ahead, whether we do or not. And so that would put us at a very competitive disadvantage if we pass such legislation in this country. There's a lot more details than that, but the bottom line is this legislation is bad for U.S. agriculture. So we have a national campaign. We're calling it Don't Cap Our Future. The idea behind this campaign is a very simple one. If you're like me, you have a dozen gimme caps hanging up there on deer horns at my house in Texas, and you may have them hanging in different places. Some of them cleaner than others. Some of them tend to get a little dirty. And so what we thought we would do is, since that's such a symbol of what farmers and ranchers, because we tend to wear a lot of them, that if we could get everybody to sign their name on the cap, on the bill of the cap, and then put the little sticker on there that says, "Don't Cap Our Future," and accumulate those and deliver them to your United States Senator in this case, it would make the case that we do not want to pass mandatory cap and trade legislation, that we oppose it. And we oppose it for very good reasons relative to its negative effect on agriculture. And so I hope you will have an opportunity to sign those or bring your own. We are asking that you bring the clean ones and not the dirty ones to send to the United States Senators. I've got some that are covered with grease. I don't think my United States Senator would particularly appreciate me sending that one. So that's been a national campaign. It's been very successful. It's been so successful, the other side has been trashing us in the internet blogs and various other communication media about, well, they even get down to calling me names, believe it or not. And that's good, because that means they're paying attention and we're being effective. And so I encourage you to participate in this effort to keep that kind of legislation from being passed. The other campaign issue, and I think Sarah has already covered the details, and so I can make this really short, is on estate taxes. Being able to pass down our farms and ranches to the next generation is very important. The estate tax, or death tax as we like to call it, number one, we believe is an immoral tax and an unfair tax, and we've been trying to eliminate it totally for years. We find ourselves in the situation that Sarah has already described with having to do something this year. And let me tell you something, this hits pretty close to home. My father passed away 2 years ago, and my mother passed away a couple of weeks ago. And so the impact of how we structure estate tax legislation is very important to me and my family. Unfortunately, you always have to pay a lot to attorneys and accountants, and no disrespect to any attorneys and accountants sitting in this room, to be sure that you can minimize the effect of those estate taxes. But the best solution would be total elimination. Unfortunately, politically, that's probably not possible right now.